On this episode of Locked On Angels, GM Jon puts on his GM hat and he sits in the GM chair and he's going to flex his GM muscles and he's going to come up with an offseason plan that's going to help the Halos win in 2025. So what philosophy and plan does Jon have and who's he going to sign? Well, I don't know. You don't know. So let's find out together. It's time to get locked on with Mike and Jon, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is the easiest show I've ever done because all I had to do was show up and just listen to Jon. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all this Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Give us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. We are almost at 8,000. I think we're like 4 away. So call your mom, call your best friend, and have them subscribe. If they don't even know what we are, just tell them we're doing it for Mike and Jon.
If anybody tells you, stop the count, don't listen to them. Sorry, I had to get that in there.
Whether you're watching or listening, hey, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
It's our third offseason here at Locked On Angels. We're lifelong fans of this team, and it's a pleasure, privilege to be part of Locked On Angels and your hosts every single weekday until about mid-December. We'll drop down to 3 episodes, and then we'll come back full force before spring training. On today's show, it's GM week, and it's my turn to give you my free agent picks that I would sign if I were Johnny Manassian. Apparently, there's a Zach Manassian who got a job in San Francisco, and so why can't there be a Johnny Manassian? We'll do that too. But before we get into that, I want to invite you, our everydayers, whether you're watching or listening, at the end of GM week, we want to hear from you. And so you tell us the free agent moves that you would make. No trades right now. We're going to do more trade stuff a little bit later on as we get deeper into the offseason. But I would say free agents that you would sign, how much, how many years, that sort of thing, kind of like what Mike and I will be doing over the next 2 days. We want to hear from you. We want to do that kind of like our Fan Mail Friday, but your picks for GM week. If you were GM, who would you sign? All right, Mike, it's time to get into this. I'm doing my best Perry Manassian impression. I'm going to tell you who I'm going to add to the Halos in 2025, which free agents I'm going to take for how much money. We'll get to that. But Mike, give us a little info on the Angels payroll, the luxury tax, all that stuff we have to keep in mind as we spend Artie Moreno's money. Let's go.
Yeah, so a couple of rules that Jon and I came up with. First of all, we can't pick the same players.
Right.
So the players you hear today will not be the players that you will hear from me tomorrow, which stinks because Jon gets to go first and he already stole one of my players. So I have to reevaluate what I'm doing, which is fine. It's totally fine. Also, we're trying to work within the constraints of reality. It would be easy for us to say, we can get Bonds and Griffey and we don't have to give up too much, right? So
you love that joke. I love that.
Such a great joke. So the Angels' estimated payroll in 2025, according to Roster Resource, is around 168 million. So 168.3 million, kind of around there. So for luxury tax purposes, the Angels have 183.6 million going towards the luxury tax this season. That actually does include Jorge Soler. So keep that in mind. That's because the average annual value of contracts counts towards the luxury tax, even though actual money being spent on a player might be lower this year, but more in another year. The first luxury tax threshold and penalty is $240 million. So we're going to avoid $41 million. So we're going to avoid spending past that, which makes this kind of hard because there are some really good players out there. But we also are trying to stay within the constraints that Artie Moreno would actually stay within because we know he's not going to go past the luxury tax. So that leaves about $57.3 million left before the Angels even get close and touch the luxury tax. So knowing all of that, knowing all of the constraints, Jon, I would love to first hear your philosophy and approach to all of the signings that you're about to unveil to us.
Yeah, so over segment 2 and 3, I'll let you know who my signings are. But in this first segment, I want to let everybody know this is kind of the sandbox I'm playing in, the rules that I'm going to abide by as I made my picks. Like you said, it was tough. The Angels actually had about $64 million before they touched the first luxury tax last year, and then both of us blew through the luxury tax anyway.
Yeah.
This year, we're not going to be able to do that just because that's where they're at. But here's my first rule, philosophy, and approach. I'm not taking anyone with a qualifying offer. And that sucks because Nick Martinez got offered one from the Reds. Pete Alonso's got one from the Mets. Sean Manaea has one from the Mets. And the reason I'm doing that, the Angels lose $500K in international bonus pool money, and it would also cost them a second-round draft pick. So I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to do anything that's going to compromise the future of the team. I don't think Perry Minasian will do that either. And for the first time, Mike, surprisingly, I don't think Artie Moreno would do that either. He actually said a few weeks ago, we have to be as competitive as we can in 2025. And we also want to do things to enhance 2026. So we'll be deeper. So that's kind of a philosophy I adopted just to get as real as possible. Obviously, you can't get 100% real because who knows how much money they'll actually spend, but I'm going by their parameters and what they said. Second thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add to the obvious needs of the team from last year. We got a pretty good picture of what this team can do with just the young guys. Zach Neto, 23 home runs, 30 stolen bases, 77 RBI. Joe Adell, 20 home runs, 15 stolen bases. Logan O'Hoppe, 20 home runs, 56 RBI. Nolan Schanuel, about a 250 hitter, picked it up toward the end of the season, but, that's kind of what you can expect at this point. So it's clear that the Angels lacked slugging, clutch hitting with runners in scoring position. They could benefit from striking out less. I want to address all those things. I don't know if everybody I pick addresses those things, but obviously starting pitching is also a big need. The Angels had a 4.97 ERA from the starters, 28th in Major League Baseball. They had a 3.5 walks per 9, which was 29th in baseball. And they gave up 1.4 home runs per 9, 26th in baseball. Only Tyler Anderson sniffed 180 innings. 179 and a third innings pitched. Now, remember, in my view, 180 is the new 200. So when you get excited about a pitcher hitting 200 innings, I think today's day and age and the way the game is played, that's about 180 in my book over the season. Right, Mike?
Yeah. And I agree. I agree with that number because I think that way that they're going to use pitchers and will continue to use pitchers will not allow them to get to that 200 pitch mark. I think only the Justin Verlanders, the ones that are coming up, are
the Aaron Nolas.
Yes. Yeah. I think those are the types of pitchers. Maybe even the Corbin Burns of the world will be the ones that even get really close to that. Right.
Now, depth is another thing I want to address. No more going from Zach Neto to Jack Lopez. I think Locked On Every Day or Ben made that point. I love that.
Yeah.
Third, I'm making sure I don't jeopardize the future, the development of the young guys and the players we need to see grow and get everyday reps. So it's not like I'm going to be signing anybody to take Neto's place at shortstop, right? Or anybody for the outfield, that sort of thing. Fourth, and you and I have talked about this a lot, I'm going to add the difference makers. We've said on Locked On Angels that the Halos have been stars and scrubs for a long time, especially when it was, Trout and Ohtani and then, Monte Harrison, right? And so it's like, we're not doing that anymore. What we did learn from last year is now the difference makers, the Trouts and the Ohtanis, are missing, and the rest of the team was pretty capable and supplemental, but they lacked a lot of difference-making arms and bats. I think that guys like Neto, O'Hoppe, and even Jose Soriano, they will become difference makers in their careers over the next few years, but they still need time. And then finally, Mike, any deals I make are going to be in service of shoring up the team for the next couple of years so that we have dependable players to go along with the young core. I'm going to have multi-year guys, but maybe they'll be around while the core gets better. But also you have guys whose contracts might run out by the time the next group of players is ready to step up. So that's kind of the framework which I put all of this in. I want to hear your thoughts on my philosophy, my plan, and my strategy. What do you say?
Well, we're brothers, so we're going to kind of align ourselves pretty closely as we're walking through this. But one of the things I love about your strategy is I think that it is the heartbeat of everydayers and Angel fans that watch this team every day. You and your philosophy have just acknowledged that you're watching this team every single day. And what we hear from media that maybe isn't watching this team every single day is a very different narrative, right? And so some of the things that you brought up are things that you might possibly hear on the outskirts of Anaheim and from national media. But the truth is that your philosophy says, I know this team and I know what this team needs. And obviously I'm going to hear, we're going to hear who you're going to select. But just in that strategy, I think all of our everydayers, and I'll include myself in that, would say, yeah, I totally agree with you, because we do need to fill out this roster, but we also need to bring in some people that are going to be difference makers, that we're not going to go from stars to scrubs. We are actually going to be a team that will have a solid backup. On yesterday's show, we talked about the picks that we made in last offseason, and a lot of comments from our everydayers were like, yeah, Ahmad Rosario would have been great here, and this person, Gio Urshela, would have been great as a backup to that. We just haven't had that. And so what I appreciate about your strategy is that you have just given a great awareness that you're watching this team every day and you know what this team needs. So I'm looking forward to what it is that you're going to be sharing with us.
All right. It turned out to be a lot more difficult than I thought it would be.
Yeah,
and so, I tried to stay within the framework, but man, it was tough. So I want to say thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up on Locked On Angels, I'm going to give you my free agent picks. I'm going to tell you who I signed for how much and how many years and why. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with a few. So we'll get to all of those free agent picks coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, this sportsbook app, is so good because it gives you everything that you need all in the same place. You can look at the live stats, you can look at the play-by-play, and then when you get a hunch or a stirring, you can go and check out all of the details on the same page where you place your bets, because FanDuel wants you to win. FanDuel wants you to be smart. They want you to be a great bettor. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. It's FanDuel.com. You can never waste a hunch. Don't do it. They don't want you to. And make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And everydayers, just once again to remind you, whether you're watching or listening, head on over to YouTube, get in the comments section, or reach out to us on social media, because we want to hear your free agent picks for GM week. We'll do that on Friday. So tag us, tweet at us, message us on Instagram, whatever you have to do to get our attention. We're out there. We're paying attention. We see you. And so make sure that if you have some hunches, like Mike just talked about, make sure that you get that to us. Your free agent picks, again, not trades at this point. We'll talk trades another time, but free agents strictly. Try to stay within those restrictions of luxury tax and whatnot. We want to hear from you and see what you guys would do if you were the GM of the Angels.
All right, John, you titled this segment The Difference Makers. These are the guys that are going to make a big difference on a team that has been designed and created by GM Jon. So, John, start us off with your first difference maker.
All right. The very first difference maker is Blake Snell.
Okay.
I'm going for it this year, Mike. I know we were all a little apprehensive, especially because he had a qualifying offer last year. Doesn't have that this year. He opted out of his contract with the Giants. I actually feel right in line with MLB trade rumors. They said that he would make about $32 million a year. I'm going to do that. I'm going to give him 5 years, $32 million a year. It's time to bring Blake Snell to Anaheim. There was all that talk last season that he wanted to be there. The Angels were interested, and I feel even more confident that he would be a front of the rotation starter to be the lead guy while the future young arms start working on their craft and developing, I think it'd be great to have Blake Snell at the front of this rotation. Now, I know that he got off to a bad start in 2024. You can blame it on the late signing. You can blame it on Scott Boras. You can blame it on the fact that he had no real spring training. You can blame it on the actual problem, which was the abductor strain that he had that took him out. But the fact is, he came back and pitched to a 1.23 ERA over his last 14 starts once he was healthy. And here's what I love, and I think you'll love this too. A 174 batting average against, a 526 OPS in 2024, the best of his career, by the way. A 34.7% K rate, also the best of his career. Again, the Angels need help in that department. A 10.5 walk rate, which was down from 13.3% last year. Even with the walks that everybody gets concerned with, Snell's fielding independent pitching was 2.43, which means within everything that Blake Snell can control on the mound as a pitcher, preventing home runs, giving up walks, hit by pitches, causing strikeouts, he'd essentially have a 2.43 ERA. So to me, Blake Snell, I think, needs to lead the charge and lead the rotation for the next at least 5 years is what I'm giving him. And I think that's good timing with the young starting pitching that's coming up behind him.
John, it's not how you start, it's how you finish,
That's right?
And his last 14 starts, a 1.23 ERA, once he was healthy, once he got some reps underneath him. So you can almost throw away what happened at the start of the season for him because he did not have spring training. If this guy has a full spring training and this guy can have a great offseason knowing where he's going, I can anticipate him being one of the first guys signed. I think it's a great move for the Halos. He was on my list. Now I got to take him off my list. So I gotta rework that a little bit. But I think that's a great start. I do agree. I think he's a difference maker.
Mike, Jared Weaver said something on Foul Territory the other day that we discussed on our show, and that pitching and defense were the emphasis while the Angels were winning in the 2000s. And while this guy that I'm about to tell you about is not your typical difference maker in terms of like a big slugger or anything like that, it's the defense and what it allows the Angels to do. Now, just I apologize in advance to any of our Korean audience who might be watching, but it's not Ha-Sung Kim. It's actually Hae-Sung Kim, who's coming over from the KBO. Mike, he plays second base, and I am going to give him $8 million a year for 3 years. He's going to be 26 years old in January. He will be able to sign as a free agent, not a amateur international free agent. So it won't be international bonus pool money. Kind of like how the Red Sox signed Yoshida or the Dodgers signed Yamamoto. Kim is going to fall into that category as well. And if I'm saying Hae-Sung Kim wrong, please somebody in the comments tell me and correct me because I want to get it right.
Yeah.
This, Mike, is purely in service of depth and defense. He's a plus defender at second base. Last year, he stole 30 bases. He slashed 326, had a 383 on base, a 458 slugging, and an 840 OPS in the KBO. Now, I know those numbers could be a little elevated when you come over to MLB, it can be a little bit different. But what I do like is he had a 10.9% K rate.
Yeah.
So give me a guy who plays defense, doesn't strike out, and can steal some bags. I think that he's going to be great for us. Give me contact, give me small ball, give me base stealing, give me good defense, move Rengifo to third. And if you need to give Christian Moore more time in the minor leagues, you've got that ability to do so with Kim. You also add depth because Kim can play some shortstop, has played third in the past. So there's a lot of moving pieces so that you don't go from Zach Neto to Jack Lopez. You have some options if you have Neto, Rengifo, and Hae-Sung Kim in your infield.
Yeah, so this is going to mean that Christian Moore is probably going to be your starting second baseman on Jon's GM team, right? Because you're going to have him at second, going to have Rengifo at third, and then you can have Kim maybe rotate in and out if Christian Moore struggles. Is that kind of the philosophy there?
I think you start with Kim, and I think you leave Christian Moore in the minors. You let him cook a little bit more. And look, you can always make that move later on. You can trade Rengifo halfway through the season. It is his last year. They have not given him an extension. And so I think don't come out the gate with Christian Moore. I think give this guy a chance. You give him a 3-year contract. I think you're going to be happy with what you have. And you have Christian Moore's depth if there is an injury or something goes terribly wrong for the
And
Halos.
you got great defense right up the middle because you have Zach Neto and you have Kim. And then, of course, Mike Trout will probably be in some center field, right? And also, if Mickey Moniak is there, they're going to have Mickey Moniak in center field as well. And so I like the move. I think it's a good move. I like that you're prioritizing defense, and that's when the Angels were winning. So anytime you do that, I'm going to go along with it. So, okay, so that's Blake Snell, and that's Hyesung Kim. Now, your third selection.
Now, you might be asking, how is this guy a difference maker?
Okay.
And it's catcher Travis Darno.
Okay.
I'm giving him $2 million for 1 year. And here's an area where I think he will make a difference and where the Angels can improve. The veteran backup catcher. It's time to move Matt Thaiss, who's got a ton of years left, believe it or not, even though he's a little older. Make a move there, get something back for him to somebody who needs a catcher, and bring in Darno. His option with the Braves for $8 million was declined by the team. And I think he would take a role with the Angels because he is a Long Beach native. He won't be a significant bat, but he still defends well. He calls a good game. And I actually reached out to Lindsey Crosby, former host of Locked On MLB Prospects, and a huge Braves fan who knows everything about the Braves. He does Braves Today, all this good stuff. This is what he had to say. Darno was an above average blocker. His pop time is below average at this point in his career. From a leadership perspective, though, he did lead the game prep meetings, not Sean Murphy, and he was the veteran leader of the clubhouse. He might be a good influence on Logan O'Hoppe. And when I think about the young starting pitching coming up with this team, Darno is a good guy to be catching them. I think it's a guy for Logan O'Hoppe to watch, to go to, and learn about his craft and how he goes about his business. It's the kind of difference you don't see on Baseball Reference or Fangraphs or anything like that, but it's the difference that sets this guy up for success, or I should say sets the team up for success in the future because you're helping the young pitchers, you're helping Logan O'Hoppe, and you have a veteran presence in the locker room.
So difference makers, Blake Snell is going to be your number one starter. So obviously that's an impact, right? Then you have Hyesung Kim. Defense is really what his difference-making ability would
contact,
be.
Honestly.
And contact.
Like, he's not striking out a ton, which the Angels, we're not terrible at, but weren't great at either.
And then Travis Darno, who will bring a veteran presence behind the plate, work with the young pitchers, perhaps even help Logan O'Hoppe develop into an even more impact catcher, not just impact bat. So those are your three difference makers. John, I like it so far. You're doing a great job.
Okay. I wasn't confident because trying to squeeze all this money into 50, 54, 57, whatever you have before you hit the luxury tax. So yeah, just trying to do the best I can with the resources that we have. I think hopefully I'm off to a good start.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Hims. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra, Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. This process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits and having to talk about this with someone. You just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment options for you. And if prescribed, your medication ships right to you. It's in discreet packaging, all for free. No insurance is needed. No issues there. It's one low price that covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works best for you. Here's how you get started. You get a free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for all your personalized ED treatment options. These products that are mentioned are chewable, compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. There are some restrictions. You can see their website for details and important safety information. There is a subscription that is required, and prices vary based on product and subscription plan.
And today's show is brought to you by our friends at Arena Club. Card collectors, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on Luka, Ellie, or Mahomes rookie cards just isn't in the cards. But thanks to Slab Picks from arenaclub.com, it's now possible to score great cards for a fraction of their retail price. Arena Club provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, transparent, with a full grade rationale provided, an explanation of how your card was scored. So whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb and use the code LockedOnMLB. Again, arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb, code LockedOnMLB for 10% off your first purchase.
Johnny, in our final segment today, you are going to give us your supplemental pieces. These are the pieces that are going to fill out your roster and really help this to be a fully functioning roster with not too many gaps, not too many issues. You want to make sure that you have good players that are backing up your good players, and then you're also going to work on maybe some bullpen pieces, some pitching. So give us your supplemental pieces.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with, he's a starting pitcher and a relief pitcher. It's Jacob Junis, Mike. Or maybe it's Eunice. I don't know. Is it a soft J, like yogging? $4 million for 1 year. He's kind of an under-the-radar pick. The Brewers did not pick up his option, and so he is a free agent. I want some depth in terms of an arm who can play out of the pen and also be a starting pitcher. As a reliever, he got into 18 games last year, pitched to a 3.55 ERA. But Mike, as a starter, 6 games, 1.55 ERA. He doesn't walk anybody either. Listen to this, 3.2% walk rate.
Wow.
If you go to Baseball Savant and you look at his page, the red is like going off the page for walk rate because he's in the 99th percentile, essentially the best in baseball in terms of pitchers who qualify among walk rates. And listen to this. I know you love whip.
Yep.
Listen to this. 0.851 whip. That's less than a person per inning getting on base against Jacob Junis. So I'm keeping the flexibility open for other starters, of course, but we have to replace that Carson Fulmer type.
Yeah.
And I think that Jacob Junis can do that. You need 10 starting pitchers, honestly. And I think between who they have in the minors, who they're starting with in the majors, guys like Detmers and Silseth also play into that. You got to have 10 starting pitchers to start the year. That's just a fact of life. Not everybody has to be on the 40-man, or I should say the 26-man, but I think Junis could be a really good option, especially if he can play out of the pen and as a starter.
John, I love the whip because what that says is that if he is actually getting hurt in a game, it's probably more contact than it is giving free passes. And that's really what you want. You want a lot of contact because you want to give your defense an opportunity to make a play for you, and that you're not actually going to give these free passes. So if he's in the bullpen, man, to have somebody that's not going to get free passes is great. But if he's a starter, then he's going to be able to eat some innings for you, and he's going to do it in a successful way. We've talked often about innings eaters, right? And that an innings eater with a high ERA and a high walk rate really don't help you. But this guy's ERA is low and his walk rate is really low. So I love this selection.
Awesome. Next one, third baseman, Yoan Moncada, Mike. He just got declined by the White Sox, their option. I'm going to give him $1.5 million for 1 year. He needs a bounce back season. He's been hurt. And so I think that he'll take an opportunity to show who he is. I think he's going into his age 30 season next year. I'm going to have him be somebody who's off the bench to play third, maybe try out first base. He's missed a lot of time with injuries, but I think that's what makes him a good bench guy. If you're not going to him every day, you're not wearing him out. And I think that he could use a move with a team like the Angels who are willing to give him a chance to come back and prove it. I think this is a year for a prove it deal for him. Also, I didn't realize this until I was doing my research. He's a switch hitter, and he is somebody that the Angels desperately need because all they have in terms of lefties are Shawnuel, Moniak, and then Rengifo, who bats left because he's a switch hitter. So give me Yoan Moncada to play third base if Rengifo's not playing at third base. I think that you just write Anthony Rendon out of the picture at this point. So I'm going to go with Yoan Moncada for $1.5 million.
So I was going to ask you, like, how does this differ from Miguel Sano? But I think the switch hitting is probably what makes this a bit better and a better move, right?
Moncada was also in MLB last year, which I think is significant.
Yes. That would be 1A is that he's a switch hitter. 1B would be that he actually is still a major league caliber type of player. Okay.
And I think he had about 40 plate appearances and hit 275 in that time, or 270 or something like that. All right. One more, like you were about to say. I cut you off. Sorry.
That's right.
Starting pitcher, Spencer Turnbull. $4.5 million for 1 year. I'm rolling. This is my rotation. Snell, Anderson, Soriano, Kohanowitz, and Spencer Turnbull. Now, the health has not been great, but when he is healthy, he's turned in some killer results, especially with the Phillies last year, who got him for, I want to say, $2 million? And it was the steal of the century, even though he didn't have a lot of innings. But here's the thing. He had a 2.65 ERA, a 1.049 whip, and an ERA plus of 154, 54% better than league average, both as a starter and a reliever. Here's what I like. A 26.1% K rate and a 9% walk rate. Again, one of the areas where the Angels struggled was walks. I'm bringing that down by bringing in Turnbull. This is a gamble that I'm willing to make. And you and I have talked about, like, who's the guy out there that just like needs a chance?
Yeah.
And you take a risk. And if it pays off, you look like a genius. If Spencer Turnbull can get you around 100 innings, that's a win for me, especially at $4.5 million for this year. And you have the depth behind him in case he does get hurt. You got Jacob Junis. You can put in Reed Detmers or Silseth or whatever you want to do. But I think if you roll with Snell, Anderson, Soriano, Kohanowitz, and Turnbull, I think that's a pretty good start to your starting rotation to come in with. So I spent about $56 million in total. That leaves about $3.85 million left before the luxury tax. What do you say?
I like it, John. I think that you have a good philosophy, and you fulfilled that philosophy. And so because of that, I'm going to give you a high B, maybe even a low A.
Ooh.
Because the A is really because you fulfilled your philosophy. This is what I'm doing, and here's how I'm doing it, and here's the players that are going to fulfill that, which is what we need.
Thing, and here's what I'm doing with it. Yeah,
that's what we need. That's what we need from Perry, right? We need the philosophy, we need the plan, and then I want to see it play out. And so the reason why I like this A is because you fulfilled your plan. The reason why I give it a B is because it's not the hot picks. I get it, right? And you're going to have to hit on a few, and so maybe it's more of a B minus, right? Because you're going to have to hit pretty hard on your few. But you did this last year as well. You took some risks. I like that. And if you can hit and you trust your coaching staff, you have a really good team here.
Yeah, it's the qualifying offers that killed me, man. And just taking those out of the equation made this really, really hard. So I hope our everydayers are happy with the results here for my picks for the offseason.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, you can enjoy Locked On MLB. Our friend Sully is going to help you get through the offseason, and he's going to focus on all of baseball. And so right after this listen, you can check out his show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Remember, get us your picks up for the offseason. You play GM. We want to share yours on Friday and respond to them. Mike, you better warm up your voice. I know you talk for a living. You talk on Locked On Angels. You talk at the church. So you better warm up your voice because tomorrow you're up, my friend. You're GM.
Yeah, taking the day off. I'm going to stay home. Gonna fast and pray and be on Baseball Savant all day long because I am in the GM seat. Remember, I can't select John's players, so you've taken a few off of my board, so I'm going to go back to the drawing board and figure out some things. But I'm going to put together a team that we can be proud of, and that's going to happen tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that. We hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
Remember, make a comment, let us know what your team is going to be because we want to share those on Friday.